when you're online, when you're on your phone, do you trust what's in your news feed when it's maybe curated by companies like Facebook or Twitter or Google? Gallup and the Knight Foundation just published a study showing Americans are concerned, increasingly so, about the role of internet companies in the spread of their news. Not just fake news, even real news. Millennials are really interesting too, because in some ways they're skeptical, in other ways they're very open. I got some details from Brandon Busteed of Gallup.
Brandon, if we've been watching the news, we know that tech companies are in a bit of hot water with Congress. Turns out their users increasingly are concerned about their activity, seen and unseen. And the numbers here with Gallup prove that.
Yeah, the most recent study we've done in collaboration with the Knight Foundation around views of media, trust and democracy, specifically got into details about how people think about major internet companies and how they are tailoring news to our feeds in various ways. And what's interesting is they're overall more negative about tailoring anything to them, let alone news. So 54% are overall negative about the idea that these companies are using algorithms to tailor things based on their interests, based on their search activities or browsing activity.
Showing me a mattress when I was looking for a mattress.
Right, okay. So surprising to see the majority are negative about that, but then when we specifically ask about news and information, they're very, very negative about the idea of these types of companies tailoring their news to them.
I guess what? They're concerned that they're going to be peddled to, or that companies might be limiting voices that they don't want them to hear?
Yeah, I mean, they're worried about, even almost half of them say they're worried about the companies actually tailoring their news based on the company's own political agenda. I mean, so there's a lot underneath this, but there's a high amount of skepticism about internet companies tailoring news very specifically to users, and a number of things they feel it's limiting. It's limiting their view of what's out there, right? They feel like they're getting stuff that might be misinformation, inaccurate news, or just limiting their worldview of the things that are going on and important out there. For users that are concerned about this, and we know the vast majority are, right? What can they do to express their concerns? One of the things they want companies to do is disclose their methodology for how they tailor this to you.
That's what you found in the study.
Be very clear about it. Yeah.
Transparency.
9 out of 10 want that transparency. They want to know the methodology for how these internet companies are tailoring information to them.
And it also depends on who you're asking when you break it down by demo. At Gallup, you went into, for instance, millennials. They are wary, right, of these companies?
Young people in the United States, so specifically the age category of 18 to 29-year-olds, they are the most skeptical on trust in media right now. And we actually see it being linked to the top sources that they get their news from. So they're the most likely to get their news from internet-based sources, and they're the most likely to be skeptical of the media in the United States. So that's a very specific millennial kind of call to action, is to say, hey, do you feel like you're getting your news in all the right places? I mean, obviously from the self-report, you're saying you're getting most of it from the internet. You're also saying you distrust it more than other Americans. So, how much of this certainly is a part on the, the shoulders of companies to do what's right, news organizations to do it right, but it's also individual users kind of just being very aware of how they're getting their news and being their own curators of that in some form.
The number that stuck out to me beyond anything was who's okay with potential misinformation being in their feed. And it depends on your political affiliation.
On misinformation, in short, Republicans are more comfortable with misinformation than Democrats are.
Let me say that again. Republicans say they're more comfortable with misinformation or potential misinformation being allowed on their newsfeed that they're consuming than Democrats. And again, you would think that, after everything that's happened with fake news, all this, which actually favored President Trump mostly, that Democrats would say absolutely not. Even many Democrats said they'd be okay with potential misinformation, which is nuts.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know, in general, why anybody would be comfortable with something that they think is inaccurate, right? Other than, I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting question, right? But there were clearly differences by political party, and clearly a high enough percentage across the board where you kind of scratch your head and go, what is it that you're comfortable about?
Yeah, a quarter of Republicans said that they'd be okay.
It was about 27% of Republicans said they were okay with that, and about 8% of Democrats. So there was a big difference there, but there's still, decent percentages who are saying they're okay with misinformation.